Hey everyone, welcome back to my detailed analysis of the Uruk Hai armor from Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Two things on the helmets I forgot to mention were the cutouts around the ears really do remind me of the cutouts on Roman helmets, and the V on the front of the helmets looks like the reinforcing plate you get on the front of some German sallets. So yeah, the Uruk Hai helmets really are kind of like a mashup of a Roman helmet and a German sallet, as kind of like a general idea of the sort of feel they give me. Now, moving down to the breastplate, got a lot of weirdness going on. Luckily, the main breastplate doesn't seem like it would go down past the ribs, and I have seen some armors that come up in the middle like that before. I'm not really sure where to place them. I normally associate them with Burgundian armor, but you know, starting to get really niche at that point. I haven't looked that much into it. Another thing that kind of raised bit in the middle of the breastplate reminds me of is, of course, German Gothic backplates. And yeah, to be honest, overall, a lot of that breastplate does kind of give me German Gothic backplate vibes, with that raised bit in the middle, a couple of lames, there's a split, real one's arm. And this cutout that you get on some German Gothic backplates kind of does really remind me of that vestigial bever that the breastplates have. So it really does give me kind of a lot of that sort of a vibe. If you're interested, I'm doing a tutorial series on how to make a German Gothic backplate as part of my ongoing series of making German Gothic armor for beginners. Yes, this is an entry-level project. Free tutorials, free templates. It's a work in progress, but you know, subscribe if you want to see more of that. And there's another breastplate that the Uruk Hai armor sort of reminds me of, with that raised bit in the middle of the breastplate, and that's this one at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Don't really know a huge amount about this one. It kind of looks like someone went to their armor and just requested a breastplate that was made to overlap, kind of like a backplate was made. And honestly, when I first saw it, I was skeptical that it might have just been some monstrosity made in the Victorian era, where they might have just taken a backplate and just reshaped it a bit, added some tassets and a lance rest and a little thing to attach your bever, try and sell it off as a breastplate to get a bit more money. But I put out a post on a German Gothic armor forum, and I got a lot of really great feedback, and I think Robert McPherson even said he's held it, and going by the weight, it is definitely a breastplate. It's 7.5 pounds or 3.429 kilograms, and you know, he reckons that yeah, it's definitely thick enough, and yeah, it does appear to be an original. Some people even posted some artwork of similar pieces out there, but honestly, it's not outside of the realms of possibility that maybe somebody in like the 1480s was just like, hey bro, can you make me a breastplate that overlaps like this? I mean, weirder stuff has happened in the world of armor. Though the plates beneath it, I have a feeling like they were trying to go with implying something like a Roman lorica segmentata, but I really wish they had made the plates overlap as opposed to meeting in the middle, and they're attached to each other somehow, I'm assuming, maybe riveted to an internal lever or leathers, but whenever I see them, they quite often have a tiny little gap in the middle, and honestly, I really wish they had just made one side overlap the other, even if it was just, quarter or half an inch. That would have made it a lot better. And with the huge gap between the breastplate and the top two flanges, I have my concerns about that might allow things to get in a little bit more easily than you would like. One thing that stands out a lot to me, other than the breastplate might be a little bit on the wide side. Yeah, it depends on which piece of media you're looking at. It can be quite hard to tell if you're looking at like something from the real Weta workshops, or if you're looking at some fan art. Really trying to, I'm trying to avoid accidentally judging the equipment based on fan art of it, because that's not official. But when it comes to those arm cutouts, I don't think I've ever seen any version I don't think I've ever seen a version of it where it has rolled edges on it. A lot of times you'll see on production armors for movies, they won't roll the edges. There's a nice rolled edge, and if I lift up this best view, you can see that I tried to cheese it and did not roll the edges on that. So, I wanted to experiment and see what actually would happen if you don't roll an edge. Yeah, honestly, there's so much wrong with this suit of armor. It's not really a fair comparison. Yeah, nah, it's not good, and rolling edges isn't that difficult. But yeah, there's a massive lack of rolled edges on these armors, which I guess if they're being just churned out by goblins as fast as possible, they might skip rolling the edges. That's maybe not a great quality of life thing, though. This armor is worn over mail. I don't know how much that would help, but yeah, I'm a little concerned about the complete lack of rolled edges on any of this armor. One detail that I quite like is the little vestigial bevel mounted directly bolted to the breastplate. This really does kind of enhance the suggestion of like the sallet and bevel look. Yeah, because the helmet kind of looks like an extremely fancy version of a sallet, and with a little vestigial like demi bevel thing going on there. I'm like, yeah, that's probably what they were going for. There was a little bit of that German Gothic inspiration just seeping in there. And it's not a true bevel because it doesn't come up and protect the neck and chin, but it's similar to something like a stock rib you see on some of your earlier breastplates. That's to stop anything glancing up a breastplate and getting underneath like a male coif or something, but so that is something that does seem quite plausible that you might add to a design. It does kind of make sense to me. It would help anything coming up to try and deflect it away from the throat, which considering you don't really see much throat protection in terms of like mail or anything on. So if you're not wearing like the dedicated throat defense, that's Could, give you a little bit of extra protection. The spoilers overall kind of really remind me of like very early spoilers. They do kind of look a lot like really early spoilers, very small spoilers. But then they've put this weird flange on it, which kind of looks like those flanges you see on some dedicated tournament armors. Which, if you're jousting and something that's coming in a straight line hits your shoulder, glances up, having that flange sticking out helps glance and guide things away from your throat. Kind of makes sense if you're gonna like really cheap out on throat defense. Outside of dedicated tournament armor, I don't know if I've ever actually seen those kinds of things on any real suit of armor. But before we get ahead of ourselves, the backplate, or should I say, the complete absence of a backplate. Now, some people will say that's because, oh, they're the Uruk Hai, they never run away, so they don't need a backplate, which I think that idea comes from, I think on one of the DVDs there's someone from Weta who gives that as an explanation as why they don't have a backplate. But honestly, I think that explanation of them not having a backplate is complete garbage and makes nowhere near as much sense as the one that's actually given in the movie, when Saruman says, I want them armed and ready to march in 2 weeks, and the orc in charge of his manufacturing is complaining that they don't have the means. They're running out of materials, and especially coal to work the fire, so they need to get as many orcs or Uruk Hai in as much plate as possible in the shortest amount of time. Now, one thing you can do is not bother to armor the backs. You got 10,000 orcs. Would you rather have 5,000 with breast and back plates, or would you rather have 10,000 with breastplates? I know which one I'd go with. And of course, you do actually see quite a bit of that turning up in period art. A lot of soldiers wearing just a breastplate and no backplate. These are not heavily armored knights. These are not the nobility that can afford the best armor. And for a force which is essentially, are they levies? Are they levy troops? I mean, Saruman was just pulling them out of the mud and making them with magic or whatever. So, if he's just pulling them out of the mud to go fight not a battle, mostly peaceful protest against the Rohirrim's border wall. Yeah. So, he's trying to get them in as much kit as possible, as fast as possible. They're basically expendable levy soldiers. It makes sense that if you were really pressed for time, you could just not put back plates on them, and you would save a lot of resources and a lot of time, and that's kind of why I really love the rough aesthetic of the Uruk Hai. They're like, it's rushed, mass produced, it's the bare minimum. Well, it's not really the bare minimum. They're wearing like half crude, half armors, or 3/4 armors, and to be honest, the more you armor up a person, you get diminishing returns. So like, if you want to get, like, I mean, you can armor a person completely, including like inside the elbows, behind the knees, the crotch, up underneath the armpit. You can do it. I've done it. But you know what? The closer you get to 100% coverage, the harder it gets and the more time consuming it gets. So just having these rough armors that get you like 3/4 covered, so bam, that's done. We've got munitions grade. Move on to the next one. You know what? That's something we see historically. If you ever see munitions grade Milanese armors, some of them are really crude and don't have like great overall coverage, but you know what? Gets it out the door. So, you know, from a world building point of view, having them in this mass produced, you know, cheap, crude armor that gets, you know, like 3/4 or half covered, you know, I really like that from a design point of view.